Aloha, I'm Representative Cynthia Thielen. I represent Kailua, Kaneohe Bay area in the Hawaii House of Representatives. It's my privilege today to have Jeff Mikulina with us, who is one of the foremost environmental advocates in the state of Hawaii. Jeff, I know you were the executive director of Sierra Club for many, many years, and I personally want to thank you for all of the time you spent at the legislature educating legislators about environmental matters. You made a huge difference. Many bills that went through, you deserve the credit for getting them there, and you also deserve credit for stopping some of the bad ones. But you now are in a new position, and I was wondering if you could tell the viewers what it is you're doing now.
Sure, thanks. First, thanks for having me, Representative Thielen, and you're far too generous about the work here. But it is a challenging environment to work in sometimes, but I think thanks to you and other advocates, we've been successful in moving some legislation. But today I work with an organization called the Blue Planet Foundation, and it is solely focused on ending fossil fuel use, coal and oil, globally. So that's our mission, starting with Hawaii. Let's make Hawaii a role model for energy independence, and then spread what we learn here to developing nations, to the rest of the world. And we think we can do it because we have so many good resources here for clean energy, clean indigenous energy. But the organization was founded by a gentleman named Hank Rogers, who most people don't realize they know. He was the one who brought Tetris to the world.
Oh, that's wonderful to many people.
It is, or it ruined a lot of lives. But now he's done something really good with his investment, and now he's focused on making Hawaii energy independent. And we'd like to do this as soon as possible, maybe within a decade. So that's what we're focused on.
Well, the thing that's so wonderful is that he and the organization has focused on Hawaii. And I agree with Hank Rogers. I believe that Hawaii can be really the laboratory for the world, and we can accomplish things here.
Exactly. Since we have such a diversity of resources, but we also have some huge problems that places on the mainland or other countries don't have to wrestle with as acutely as Hawaii. One of those is, small power grids. Each of our islands are separate small power grids. So as we add more clean energy on that grid, there are technological issues we have to wrestle with. So maybe we need storage, maybe we have to have a smarter grid to handle that power. But lessons we learn there, like you said, laboratory, if we can crack those problems, that's an exportable commodity from Hawaii.
Well, I don't want to get into it too much in depth this time, but I think possibly the cable, the underseas cable might come into play. Whether or not it's necessary, I don't know.
Right.
And I think that's one topic that maybe we could focus on after the legislative session begins.
I think so. And we've been somewhat agnostic about whether or not the cable is necessary. And we see it both ways, that that's a lot of power on the neighbor islands that we could bring over. And the other side of the coin is, here we could do more decentralized, smaller scale renewables and integrate them island by island too.
Well, and then that goes down to my passion, which is wave energy. Because if we were to develop use the wave resources for each island, you don't need an underseas cable.
Sure.
You're hooking up with, I believe it's the wave energy converters can provide 100% of all the power needs of the neighbor islands, and for Oahu they can provide 80%.
Wow.
So now obviously we're not going to tap that amount, but it just shows the awesome power that we have in the ocean that could do this. Talk to the viewers a little bit about Dr. Stephen Schneider, who has been involved with Blue Planet and has come out and done presentations that Blue Planet has sponsored. And maybe you could tell the viewers a bit about him and what is going on.
Dr. Schneider is a fascinating gentleman. He's a climate scientist at Stanford. Quite a pedigree. He MacArthur Genius, and recently won a Nobel Prize as a member of the IPCC, or Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. But he tells the climate change story and the need for dramatic action quickly in terms that people can really relate to. He talks about risk and uncertainty, and this appeals to maybe the sector of the society who is a little bit skeptical and doesn't want to hear, necessarily the typical arguments, but they do understand the things in terms of risk and reward and uncertainty. And, hey, we buy fire insurance despite the 1% risk of fire. well, what if there's a 10 or 20% risk of cataclysmic, climate change? What's our insurance? So he really makes a strong case for doing dramatic action today to avert problems later on. But he's been involved with Blue Planet. He is at Stanford and very involved with getting out on, in fact, I just read he's been on the Tonight Show 4 times in the 1970s.
Be serious, has he really?
Talking about climate change in 1977, which was one of the first, to really talk about the science of climate change.
Interesting.
But he had a book recently come out called Science as a Contact Sport. And
now this is by Dr. Schneider.
By Dr. Schneider, published National Geographic Press. And his thesis in the book is it's time...
Give the viewers the name of that again.
Science as a Contact Sport.
Okay.
And so what he's trying to get across is scientists, sometimes the criticism is they exist in this ivory tower and they're talking about these issues, and they don't always come out and really engage the public in a dialogue. And what we've seen, unfortunately, in some of the issues, energy and climate change, sometimes the noisiest folks get the ink in the paper or the broadcast time. Well, he wants to see scientists engage more in the process and talk about the research, talk about the relevancy, and get in the mix. And this is what the book is about, telling his story of getting in the mix and telling the climate change issues in a way that everyday people can understand.
Well, I really appreciated it when Blue Planet brought him out here and he was able to speak to a large number of us that were attending one of those forums. And it's amazing, a man of his brilliance can make the science seem, it's understandable.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you were in a graduate class taught by him, it would go above a lot of our levels of understanding because of the science involvement. But he can come out and just make things very understandable, and I was delighted on his last PowerPoint when he came out. I've met with him at Stanford, and I've also met with him here. On his last PowerPoint, he had added wave energy as one of the solutions for renewable energy. And it was great. I introduced him to the idea, bingo, he picks it up and learns more about it, and then there it is, and it's one of his educational tools.
Great.
So, good person. Blue Planet recently did something, I believe, where you were drawing lines showing about the sea rise that could occur in Hawaii. Can you explain right from the beginning what was going on with that?
So the thinking of this project is we wanted to engage Hawaii's youth in the discussion of climate change and the impacts on Hawaii.
Did you call it a specific thing?
We did. We called it the Blue Line Project.
Okay.
And we have a website, thebluelineproject.org, bluelineproject.org, working with Dr. Chip Fletcher at the University of Hawaii, a geologist there, who's developed very high-resolution maps of what a 1 meter, the effect of flooding from a 1 meter sea level rise looks like statewide. So we kind of have a feeling of this is what our Hawaii would look like if some of these scenarios come true and we see that kind of sea level rise. And the issue with a lot of our populated areas is you have one problem of the ocean coming up, but the other problem of just streams that don't drain because it's a wetland area, or Waikiki, which used to be taro, but then they filled it in, and so it's really prone to flooding. We see it, Mapunapuna here in town, and Kakako, areas that are so close to sea level that they could flood easily.